Hi, I'm Amy and I'm here with Caitlin, the finance officer. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the process of how finds get from being in the field to wherever they end up. I'm sure you'll tell us where they end up. And also I think you've got some cool things to show us as well. I apologise a little bit for the fact that we're filming on a tree, but we didn't have many options and this was the quietest place that wasn't in direct sunlight, so I did my best, sorry. So just from like our point of view, like excavating point of view, what we do is when we find something, we sort of determine whether or not it's a small find or just your regular average find. I don't know what would you call them? Bulk finds.
Bulk finds, yeah.
Oh, learning some
technical
lingo,
language.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'd work out if it's a small find or a bulk find. Usually you'd talk to, you know, the people who are working on the site, like your supervisor and site manager and things, and they would tell you what you small finding and what you're not small finding, what you're keeping and what you're not keeping. And every place that you're working would have a context number. And that context number, usually how it's worked is given a bag or a tray, and all of the bulk finds would go into there. But if you find a small find, it needs to be recorded. The location of it needs to be recorded, and then it's usually not put in the bag or the tray with everything else. It's usually taken off to someone like Caitlin, or straight to a lab or whatever you're doing with it, to then be processed, and then that's where you come in.
Yeah, so actually the majority of the finds processing needs to happen on site initially to make sure that the process is smoother when you get to the post-ex side of it. So what we do on site is we separate by material as well as context. So the first level of division comes by context. So for example, this is 2045, which means I know where it came from on site, and then it has been sorted into its material type, in this case animal bone. We also separate into pottery, CBM, shell, metal, so on and so forth, glass.
What's CBM, just for...
Construction building material. Yeah, just so colloquial, isn't it? CBM is quite common on Roman sites, so that's what the Romans were building their houses and, well, buildings out of, surprisingly. So we've had quite a few roof tiles and draining tiles as well, actually, so far on site, which is pretty interesting in itself. So yeah, we subdivide into material type, and then I have a special area on site called the finds hut, or the site hut, and then I arrange things by material in there, and then it gets sent off to King's Manor, where the post-excavation process happens.
Tell me a little bit about what happens then when it gets to King's Manor. Rather than King's Manor, to clarify, is the archaeology department base for the university.
Yeah.
But sometimes it would get sent to like a lab or a different university or whatever. But for us, it goes to King's Manor.
Yep. So the post-ex process can last for months, especially when you're on a site like a Roman site. Quite often, sites post sort of 100 AD will produce a lot of finds. So it does take a few weeks or months. In our instance, it will take months because of the amount of material we've been finding. So the first thing you always have to do is make sure that it's clean. So the first process is to do washing. So for things like bone, CBM, pottery, that will be using water, and you just scrub it basically. With a toothbrush until it's shiny clean. Artifacts which are made out of metal will not be cleaned with water. They will instead be dry cleaned, which is a bit of a different process. So rather than use water, you can still use a very soft bristled toothbrush to clean it a little bit, and you also use things like cocktail sticks to pick the dirt off, basically. Sometimes
you leave in water. We have, you can say that's in water as well. Yeah, we have an example of it here. Yeah, where you leave it in a little bit of water. What kind of finds would you need to do that for, and why?
So the main one you do it for is glass, but actually it's only certain periods of glass you need to do it for. So modern glass, so roughly from about the 18th, 19th, 20th centuries, doesn't need to be in water, but Roman and medieval glass does, and it's basically just a stabilised material. As soon as it's exposed out of the ground, it starts to crack and dry out, and so putting a little bit of water in there stabilises the material, basically.
That pretty much answers everything about the process, I believe, and now I think you have some cool things to show me.
Yes,
I've already seen them. Cool things to show you.
Yeah, so I brought out just some of what we call the bulk finds, as was explained earlier. So this site has produced a lot of animal bones. So we've had pig, sheep, goat, horse, cow, possibly a bit of dog as well. So some of these animals would have been eaten in the Roman period, but some of them would have been used for work and that kind of thing as well.
Do you have any idea what this is, other than a large bone?
It's probably part of a femur, I think.
Yeah, that's what. And it's interesting to say as well that most bone, I mean, it sounds like an obvious thing to say, but it's a thing that you wouldn't think about, that it doesn't come out white.
No, it
is not white.
Yeah, that's why I thought it'd be useful to show it off a wee bit. Yeah,
it's quite orange, and it's quite often quite soft as well.
Yeah,
when it comes out.
That's a rib bone.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Also, these are all filthy, but to be fair, they've been in the ground for like 1800 years, give or take.
Pretty much, yeah. So
yeah, and you get a lot of. I had no idea what animal teeth would look like in the ground until I found one.
Yeah.
Because they do not look like what you'd expect a tooth to look like.
Yeah.
But they're usually. So that's one there, and that's quite a good example of how it looks nothing like you'd expect a tooth to look like.
Yeah.
But you can kind of tell usually. Because it's got like ridges on it, and it's also slightly different texture as well.
Yeah.
They're usually a little bit wider, usually as well.
Yeah.
From my experience, I'm looking at you because you're a lot more. You know a lot more about this than I do.
This is CBM, construction building material.
Which is really exciting.
Yeah, it's not. It don't float everyone's boat, but that's a Roman roof tile.
It's quite a big bit. Yeah. Unfortunately, none of these are going to be particularly shiny because we are literally digging there. We have not.
No.
None of this has been processed yet, so this is a rather muddy bit of roof tile.
Yeah.
And this type of thing is pretty common on Roman sites, right?
It is, yeah. So if you have a Roman site with buildings, you probably will get tile. And the other big one we get is a lot of pottery. So that's a nice bit at the top.
Yeah. And you can do some cool things if you have a rim or a base with a pot as well, can't you?
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so you both now. So one of the things that you can do with a rim sherd is try and work out how big the original vessel or pot would have been. So if we had a flat surface, you basically wobble the pot until you find the angle it actually sits at. Now, if I was at off-site, I would have a chart, and I'd move the pot across the chart, and that would then tell me the diameter of the pot. So that would help us work out what it was actually used for, and what size it would have been as well before it broke into pieces.
I will put a picture of one of those charts in, because I think it once you see the chart, it's a lot easier to visualise what you do with it.
This is nice pottery. Yay, Samian. I'll let you hold that that way around.
That way.
Yeah.
Yeah, this came out of one of the trenches down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, along with a really large bit of, is it greyware?
Yeah.
Yeah, an almost I'd say like 90%, if not more than that, intact piece of greyware. It is very nice.
Yeah.
And this came out with it, but this is Samian ware. I can do that one.
Yeah. So Samian ware is a really distinctive type of Roman pottery due to its red colour. So the technical word for what this is called a slip, which is something that's added to pottery. It's basically watered down clay that's added onto the pot, and then it's fired, and it makes that lovely colour of red in this instance, because that's the kind of clay that was used. So Samian ware is from Gaul, which is now modern day France. And this piece of pottery in particular would date for about 160 to 200 AD. And that's because on top we've got that lovely stamp. So that's what we call a maker's mark. And these are really good dating tools, or diagnostic tools is another word they're called. And so this one translates into Lilianus made me, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like a putting your business card or something on it.
Putting your stamp on it.
Yeah, literally putting your stamp on it. It's almost as if we have a phrase for that.
I'll also show off this one because this is made down the road.
Cool.
to what's about
Flies.
3, 4, maybe 5 miles away from Malton. There's a little place called Cranbeck, which in the 4th century AD was a hive of pottery activity and industry, and so this is an example of Cranbeck ware. Sort of the rough side, it feels a bit rough, and that's because this is a mortarium, which is a very Roman find to have, and it's what they would have used to grind up food, basically.
Which way around does this go? Does it go? Is it that way around?
Yeah, so that's the inside of the pot with the rough surface, and so they emerge in the Roman period, and then they don't really get used again. Finish with the bead.
With the highlight.
Yeah,
This is my favourite. I love this so much.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite finds we've had on site so far, and it is precious.
I'll be careful.
That's all right. Sure, it's all right.
It's getting more blue. Is that just me?
No, it should do.
I feel like it's getting more blue. It is. It's not just me going crazy, right?
No, it should do. Yeah.
I'll show you this.
So this is a really nice Roman bead from the 1st or 2nd century. It's what we call a melon bead because of its shape, basically, and it would have been worn on a necklace, most likely.
With quite a few of them as well.
With quite a few,
like,
yeah. So like a chunky bead necklace kind of thing.
But I also like it because you can 100% see someone wearing a necklace like this now.
Yeah.
Like you think they're like 2,000 years later, and like the whole thing about apologies for the. Is it a helicopter? I can't see. Was it a plane?
Might be a plane. I can't see it.
Anyway, the people say, you know, like, oh, fashion repeats itself and whatever, and 2,000 years later, this is fully a thing that you could see people wearing, which I think is nice. And it also matches my nails.
No, time that well.
I think that's everything. Thank you very much for.
That's all right,
I stole
no
you away
problem.
from what you were doing and hid you in this forest, and I promise I won't murder you. As this is
No,
proof.
it'll be fine.
I promise. There's
Yeah, I'll
people
be
there
alright.
now
I'll be
anyway.
alright,
I can't murder you.
No.
There's too many
I'm
witnesses.
I'm safe.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll do my outro. You get to see me do my outro now. New videos every Wednesday. Like, subscribe, and all that jazz. And any requests or questions, if you leave them in the comments. I've forgotten what it is now. How long have I been doing this for? Okay. Bye.